Hey everyone, welcome back to the video. Today I'm going to be doing my VCT EMEA player rankings. I'm going to go through every player, rank them within every role for every team. Going to be a fun one. If you guys enjoy, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Really helps me out. This will be my first player rankings video, I believe, unless I upload the Americas one first. I did record that one first. But I'll be doing this one, Americas and Pacific, all in a row. So if you guys enjoyed this video, stay tuned for the other ones. I'll also be doing my kickoff pick'ems as well just before each event. So again, stay tuned for that. Also, you can go check out my power rankings video that I just uploaded. It was like an hour something long, like almost an hour and a half, and I really appreciate how well that video did. It has 2,000 views right now, which I did not expect for an hour 24-minute long video. But yeah, again, thank you guys for that. Also, go check out my Twitter. Link is in the description. I will be updating these rankings weekly on that social media platform, I guess. I don't know, on there, but just like I did last year, if you followed me on there, so you can go check that out. As well as just general like tweeting on there, I guess. I also have my Twitch there, which I stream very rarely on there, but I'll stream Minecraft sometimes. And yeah, let's get right into it now. So we'll start with the Duelist rankings, and I think at least these top two are pretty set in stone. I think some people might have Mini Boo the tier below Durka. Personally, I kind of like his style of kind of just being that kind of selfish or selfless duelist player, kind of setting up the rest of his team by the way he plays. I think if his team was mainly being the one setting him up, maybe like they were during kickoff, I think he would end up looking a lot better. Like he was looking like one of the best players in EMEA during kickoff. So I think maybe some people might say Mini Boo down, but personally, I prefer him at this number two spot. Obviously, Durka's number one. He's been number one for quite a while, outside of when Safe has been playing Duelist, who I think is the number one Duelist in EMEA if he is playing that and not IGLing. But overall, I mean, Durka is one of the greatest players of all time in this game. Won multiple trophies, been a top Duelist for like 4 years now. Did not mean to right click, and just been amazing overall. Everybody knows about these top two guys, but there's a lot of rookies and like young talent in the rest of these duelist rankings, so we do got a lot to talk about here. And we'll start with Kayak, who I think is definitely the best prospect out of all of the remaining guys. He is just sick. He can play all the duelists. I think Raze is definitely his worst one, but like when on the team that he's playing on with Fnatic, like Alfier could totally play the Raze in place of him, and then I think he can play some Gecko. I mean, I think he could probably play some Sentinel if you really needed him to, but he can play pretty much Jet, Raze, and then Yoru. I think Neon, it gets a little iffy with him. I think Chamber he can play as well. I think he's a very flexible player on this duelist role, and I think that's kind of what Fnatic is looking for. He's a little bit similar to Durka in that way, honestly, but hasn't looked too great during the offseason and has had some worse games when you get into these bigger games like the Ascension Finals, where he did not play super great. But overall, I think he should be really good on this Fnatic team, and I think is pretty clearly the number one prospect. I definitely like him a lot more than maybe I did Kiko last year in terms of rating duelists that have come from Apex. Then Koala Noob, I have number 4. I think a lot of this is me ranking him because I'm the most familiar with him out of all these players remaining, honestly. But I do think he belongs in this tier, and I do feel the best about him being a good player within EMEA. I don't think he's going to go up too much from number 4. Honestly, I think he'll probably get passed up by one or two people and end around that like 6th spot. But he'll still be really good. I don't think he'll necessarily go down by the fact that he's playing badly or anything. And I think he's also in a pretty good situation with this Navi team having Angel and Xiao to support him, and Hero even, if he's going to be playing some of that stuff. Then Martin, I think, kind of just a worse version of Miniboo, who doesn't have the insane mechanical talent to back it up. He was good last year. I'm not going to say he was amazing. But yeah, I don't really have too much to say about Martin because, like, I am not huge on him. I would have preferred he play, like, Flex for Carmine Core and then somebody else play the Duelist. unless he's playing Neon, which I do think he is pretty good at. He's kind of that more selfless entry style. Kind of, I comp him to Mini Boo a little bit, and that's in that way. But yeah, he's solid. I'm not gonna rag on him too much. He's not. I don't think. I feel like if Carmine Core is going to struggle to maybe perform at the highest level, I think that might be due to Martin because he doesn't have necessarily the highest ceiling like pretty much anybody else in this tier does, but he does have the highest floor, I think. All right, and now on to Zeus, who I'm not as high on as most people. I think one of the big things for me coming up with like a player like him is just that Foot replaced CNED, who I thought was getting slowly better in terms of like adapting to playing more different stuff other than just the Jet. I think he was getting a lot better with the Rays. The Neon might have been a little iffy if he had to play that, but it wasn't that bad when he played it on Navi last year, so I don't know. I would have had CNED probably number 3, um, maybe in this tier with Kayak, but I definitely would have had him ahead of Kayak and at number 3. So to get a downgrade to number 6, I'm assuming most people would agree that Zeus definitely has more potential to grow and get better than CNED does, just because CNED has been around for so long. Like, we kind of know what CNED's going to be at this point. But I feel like everybody's saying that Zeus, or maybe acting like Zeus is like the best prospect out of tier 2 for any duelist player. And I just think that's not true. Like, the opping is pretty clearly the best, I think, out of all of these guys. But in terms of like mechanics, I would take Loon, I would take Floor, I would take probably Koala Noob as well, but that's kind of it's kind of like similar. I think he's just a little bit he's very similar to Koala Noob. That's why he's in this tier. I don't necessarily have a huge preference over either. I just again, I kind of said this with Koala, like I just am more comfortable rating Koala higher because I know more about him as a player in terms of what he's able to play and what he's able to do. I think Zeus definitely has room to go up in this tier list. I'm not there with Foot like making a roster upgrade with Zeus. Is kind of my thing with this team, but he's very good. I like him. He's just I don't know. Again, don't I'm not the biggest fan of the roster move. That's all I'll say. And then Loon, the other Turkish duelist that got signed this offseason. I think he's also pretty solid. Again, I would have taken CNET over him. I would have done that in a heartbeat. But I do think he's kind of like the opposite of Zeus in a way where he's more of that entry style player that can maybe flex around, play a little KO as he has, play a little ISO, play some of that stuff. Like he has a bunch of some games on Sentinel as well. Apparently, I didn't even know that until I just looked him up. But he's good. I think he'll be good for BBL. Um, I'm just not exactly sure how he'll like if I have less confidence that he'll hit than the rest of these guys, but if he does hit, then I think he'll probably be better than the other guys if they're good, if that makes any sense. Then Filu, who's a player that I definitely think needs to work out one big issue, which I think is kind of either these players are players that need to work out one big thing, or I just don't think are that great. Filu, it's the nerves. He looks good. He just needs to like figure out the whole nerve stuff because in these two show matches against Carmine Core, he was very clearly shaking and playing very nervous on the stage. So he's got to figure that out. I think if he does, he'll be a lot better. But that's a big question for me and whether he can do that. Then we have Floor, who I think is good. I think Floor was a good signing. She is kind of boomer bust though, in a way for me, because yes, the mechanical talent is so good, and it was very clearly like by far the best in Game Changers. I think the next closest player was probably Noya on her own team. Maybe there's somebody I'm missing. I don't watch a ton of Game Changers. I just kind of watch the Mostly, I just watch the SR matches because they're the NA team. Um, at least the one that wins the most at the very least. So I think Floor will be good. I think Floor will probably, as long as Apex stays in tier one, I think she'll stay on that team next year. That kind of shows the confidence I have in her. But she really needs to figure out the decision making because every time in game changers, she would take maybe an extra peak or two and not get punished because she was so mechanically better than every other player. But when you get into maybe these VCT like tier one leagues where you're playing against Durka, where you're playing against Les, where you're playing against Miniboo, like players like that specifically in EMEA, you're gonna get your head taken off. So she's got to figure that out. I think she can do it, but it is my one big question on Fluorescent. Then Camo and Purpo, I kind of feel very similar about both of them. They're two players who I think are pretty good. They kind of grew on me towards the end of last year, but I think a lot of that was just them being good Neon players. Neon's going to get nerfed a little bit here. I don't know exactly how they'll perform. And then Click, I'm not super familiar with him, but I did watch like a tier 2 game of him and he looked pretty solid. I'll have to watch this Gentlemate's Heretics game, I guess, but didn't look like Heretics was trying all that hard with the comp, so I don't know. We'll see with Click. I think that'll just kind of be a wait and see type thing with him. All right. So now we're on to our like flashes slash flex players. Number one, I have Woot. I think just the most mechanically talented player in potentially all of EMEA, but definitely within this role, and it's not really close. Everybody knows Woot's good. I think he's maybe a little bit better on the Duelist role, but it's not like that much better to where I would even consider complaining about it. His util is still really good within the flex slash flashes role. You'd hope to see him maybe expand his agent pool maybe a little bit, but I wouldn't really want him on like a Viper kind of role, anyways. So it would probably just be smokes, flash initiators, maybe add fade in there for him. I don't know if he played too much of that. And then the duelist, which you can also play, which is very, very good. Then Chronicle, who I think when playing flashes specifically is a little bit worse. I think his scan is honestly like top 2 or 3 in EMEA. But when you put him on like KO and Viper and agents like that, it gets a little bit more iffy. I still think he's really good. Obviously, I have him number 2 here. But I think if he had continued on like the path that he was on from the beginning of the year, where he was just playing the flex flashes stuff, I think you might have seen a little bit more struggle from Chronicle. But he's still really good. Then Patty Tech, probably the best support player in EMEA in terms of just like the supportive utility. He's maybe not the best fragger in the world, but I think what he adds in terms of the rest of the kind of gameplay, in terms of the decision making, the util, and from what I know, the experience in terms of comms, he's very, very good. Um, and yeah, he's number 3 for me. I wouldn't put him quite in that tier just because of the fragging. I don't think it's good enough to kind of justify him being 1 or 2. But the supportive utility, kind of him being number 3, despite being worse fragger than probably the next like 4 players after him, kind of shows how good he is. Then Yampi, I think despite IGLing now, I still think he's going to be probably around the 4th or 5th best flex player in EMEA. He can play pretty much everything. He can play flashes. He can play scan. He can play a little bit of Viper. Um, he can play some Omen. He can play some Duelist. Like he's played every role at this point and been pretty good on all of it, as well as now IGLing for BBL. Hopefully with a full time like super committed IGLing role, he'll be a little bit better at that. But we're just talking individually, and I think he's proven to be one of the more consistent players in EMEA over the past like couple years on Liquid. Like when he was playing Duelist with like Scream and Navera, he was kind of iffy, but I think once he started getting into playing more of the Sentinel, the smokes, and like the supportive roles, I think he started to get a little bit more consistent there. Then Zipon, who I have number 5. I think just a really good player at this point, nothing spectacular. You'd like to see his support agents be a little bit better. I think his raise is really good. I'm not sure how much he's going to get asked to play that on this team, and his neon's pretty good as well. But like his KO, his Sky, Sage, Breach, agents like that, Fade, I don't think are quite as good, and I do think need to improve if he's going to be continuing on this Gentlemates team. Honestly, the more I think about it, I'm actually going to move him below Kicks. Staying in this tier though, he just did not impress me last year. Kind of having to play more of that stuff. Um, and yeah, I'm a little bit out on Zipon at this point. I think he could be a good player if he continues playing, probably similar to how a bunch of people see CNED, but I thought CNED was always better than Zipon even at their peaks. Um, or specifically at their peaks, I guess. Um, then Kicks, who I now have number 5. Uh, I think all year he was kind of up and down, kind of showed some nice stuff, showed some bad stuff. But overall, I don't know. Like he was good overall, and then at champs, I feel like he kind of turned up a little bit more. Obviously, this first series he struggled, but like against Talon and against Lev the second time, I do think he played pretty well in those games. Obviously, the second game against Lev, still not great statistically, but honestly, I think he was really good at that tournament. I would like to see him keep developing on this team. I mean, they're gonna let him do that. Hopefully, give him a little bit more than just kickoff. Like I could really see this team struggling at kickoff and then immediately replacing kicks with an IGL. Uh, I wouldn't love that, but because they've like committed to this kind of thing. But like, I don't know. He's a good player. I think even if he would get cut, I still think he'd get another shot in tier 1 just because he's shown just enough. Then Soulcast, I'm maybe a little bit lower on Soulcast. I think he's played really well the past couple years in tier 2. Couple? No, last year in tier 2, sorry. He only played the one season on Apex. But I think he showed a lot. He showed that mechanical talent that you see in like the scrims and like everybody talks about is definitely there because the nerves weren't there in tier 2. But maybe coming into this year, the nerves are going to show back up with him. I don't think they will. I think he will be a hit, but I still got to see it a little bit more before I bump him up into this next tier. But overall, I do think he is kind of deserving of that. Just because, like, I think he can play both Flashes and Sentinel to a pretty decent level. And yeah, I really am excited to watch Soulcast. I'm just a little bit worried about him, is all. And then Abez, I think looked okay in the games that he played for Carmine Core. I'd like to see a little bit more improvement, if I'm being honest, on that like just supportive role. He didn't look fully comfortable on it, but I do think he looked fine for it being like the first couple stage games that they played with this roster. So I think he will improve. I think he needs to improve as well. But yeah, I think they'll be perfectly fine with Alves. Then Cracks, a player that I've been kind of lower on for a while. Um, the flexibility still isn't there to this day. He can play KO and he can play Gecko and he can play Sage, and that's about it. Now, actually, he can play Raze as well. I'll give him that. Like the Sky, the Breach, it's just not there. The Fade, I guess he's played a little bit. I don't remember him playing it ever, so I'd highly doubt it was that great. Um, and yeah, I don't know. I feel like he's been holding this team back quite a bit. I don't think just the raw mechanical talent that he has kind of justifies keeping him over maybe some other uh, better flex players, both in terms of flexibility and in terms of decision making and that kind of stuff. So I don't know. He to me feels like Asuna if his raise was significantly worse, which is just like really bad. And I would say his support stuff is worse as well. So I don't know. Then Runner, I think he'll. I don't know. I really liked Runner going into last year. Um, Obviously he didn't have the best year on Giants. I think he can kind of bounce back, or he didn't have the best year on Vitality. Now he's on Giants, but yeah, I think I don't know. because I would believe in him a little bit more if he's playing Sentinel. His stats have looked pretty good on Flex. I don't remember watching too much of them. I watched some of them, but not a ton. Hopefully he can continue improving on this, but I'm not gonna buy into Runner at this point. And then Angel, everybody knows it's Angel. Like it's not quite as bad as FNS as I'll talk about in the Americas video, but because there's definitely some more highs with Angel, but the lows are really really low with him. Next up, we have the Initiator role, and I'm gonna go from the perspective that Leo will play for Fnatic at some point this year. I'll probably update this for kickoff if Crashies plays. If I were to have Crashies in here, he would probably be number 4 in between Trex and Xiao. Uh, I think he's really just a really good player. But like, there's so many good initiators in EMEA that I don't think he can really be in that like top 3, specifically with the year that he had last year as well. But Leo, best initiator in the world. If he's playing, he is unbelievable. If you disagree, you are wrong. I don't think anybody's actually even close to him. In my opinion, I think you could argue that other people are close to him, but in my opinion, he is by far not even close the best initiator in the world. Then Rien's, who I have in a tier of his own specifically because I do think he's a tier better than your Trexes, your Xiaos, your Crashies. But I don't think, again, I don't think he's in that tier with Leo. He's incredible as well. I mean, probably arguably the second best initiator player in the world behind Leo. Um, and so therefore he would probably be the best in the world at this point. Just with Leo not playing kickoff. Like, what other guys do you got? You got EU, who I think is definitely in that conversation. Uh, if you count Forsaken as an initiator player, which I think most people would classify him as a flex, I have him as a initiator for my player rankings here. I'll kind of explain that in my Pacific video. But like, really it's just those, like EU and maybe um Trent actually. Yeah. EU and Trent are the only two that I'd even kind of have close to him right now. And yeah, Rienz is just sick. I think he's awesome for Heretics. And I mean, I was kind of wrong about him going into last year. I wasn't super high on Rienz. He didn't have the greatest start to the year, but definitely once you got into stage 2 and champs, I think he was elite. And I think same deal with Trex. Um, I wasn't super high on him coming into the year, but I still thought he'd be good for this team, specifically when he's been playing that scan initiator stuff. He kind of started the year playing some like different flex weird stuff. But once he's kind of found his role on this team, I think he was incredible last year. I think if he kept playing like that, he would be in a tier with Rienz. But I think I just need to see it a little bit more from Trex because when he played on Koi, he really looked bad. So I'd like to see kind of another, maybe little bit of him playing at that super elite level to kind of justify putting him in that tier with Rienz. And then Xiao, kind of same deal. I think Xiao will be incredible this year, but him playing smokes the past couple years or the past year has not looked super great. So you hope that he can get back onto that initiator, which I highly doubt he doesn't with Ruxic, um, and starts playing at that same level. And if he does, I think he might even be like close to like number 2, honestly, if he plays at that level. So yeah, he's really good. Then Shados switching back to this initiator after a couple of years, also on Koi on Sentinel. Um, yeah, that was an interesting time period for Shados. I thought he was terrible on it on Sentinel. I don't know why they kept him on it for like multiple years. Um, but I think he is really good at that scan initiator stuff. He showed that in the off season. And as long as that continues into the regular season, which I would highly doubt it doesn't, I think he'll be really good. And I also think his Sky will be very good, because that's what was insane back in the day. I think his KO could be good. His Sova has proven to be really good. Fade, maybe. I'd need to see it first. But yeah, he's just incredible. Then Sociable, who is my favorite player out of any league in tier 2, all like in this season, like whatsoever. He is so good. I mean, like, let me list the agents I would realistically let him play, especially if he's not IGL. Raze, Sova, Omen, Breach, Sky, Yoru, uh, Fade, Neon, KO, Deadlock, Sage. I feel like I'm missing an agent, Gecko, because he hasn't played Gecko. What other agents in here? Phoenix. I'd let him play Phoenix. Reyna maybe. Yeah, just all the agents in the game pretty much. I would have him play for a team, and also he can IGL. Now he won't be for BBL, which I think is honestly the best for him because I mean he's not the greatest IGL in the world, and I think Yampi would just be better than him. Um, and it'll allow him to frag a little bit more. I think he will probably prove to be in this, at least in the blue tier here this year. I think that highly of him that he'll be in the conversation with Trex and Shao, but he just hasn't fully proved it yet. So I'm going to put him at number 6. Then Cloud, I think, will kind of take a little bit of a dip in individual performance because he's an IGL now. Um, Hopefully he doesn't, but I would need to, again, I need to see it first before I can rank him super high while he's IGLing. And then we have a bunch of IGLs and also Kamek down here, I believe. I think Kamek is not IGLing. If somebody knows who specifically is IGLing on Liquid, I would love to know. I'm pretty sure it's Nats. Um, but yeah, Kamek I think was just a little bit lower level of a prospect. I still think he's pretty good, and I'd like to see some more out of him. I think he can play that Sentinel or that Initiator stuff for any team, and I think he's solid at both. Then Mr. Fallen, probably the best fragging IGL. Molesy, I think when he's played and not IGL'd, I think he's been really good as an individual, but a little bit worse when he has been IGLing, or quite a bit worse. I'd say he's probably like in this range when not IGLing. Then Sadak, who I think has been a little bit overrated as an individual while calling, but I mean he's probably what you would want in terms of like elite level caller, but also like will have pop off rounds where he will literally just win you around. That's super valuable from an IGL spot. So he's really good there. And then Robbie BK, who I think is just probably the worst IG or individual IGL, but not terrible either. So yeah. And now next up onto Smokes. I think this one should be pretty quick. You got to add a captain. I don't think he's like an elite Smokes player by any means, but he is pretty clearly the best in the EMEA and has been for a couple of years. Kadavra. I mean, last year he only played Split 2, but he was incredible after having incredible stats in whatever Challengers League he was playing in. I believe it was France. Kind of bad that he didn't get picked up by Carmine Corps because I feel like that would be like a perfect fit for him in terms of being the elite like French Smokes player playing on Carmine Corps. I feel like that would be good. I mean, obviously Shin was playing Smokes for them, so I think Shin's really good as well and might even be in that conversation with Kadavra. But Kadavra is sick. Not a player that's talked about a ton. He can play. He really just plays like Omen and Cypher pretty much, but he's really good at both. And then with Sugetsu and Safe, they're two players that I have a little bit of doubt that in terms of like their Smokes play. Sugetsu, I have significantly less doubt. Because transitioning from Sentinel to Smokes isn't that hard. It is pretty different, especially nowadays. But it's not that hard. I think he can do it and has been decent at it when he's played. And then Safe with the IGLing debuff. I don't know exactly how far he's going to fall, but he is amazing when he's not IGLing. So I'm going to keep him at number 4 and drop him if necessary. Then Avova has been a really solid Smokes player in EMEA for a long, long time. I think pretty clearly top of this next tier. And then we got a bunch of young guys. You got Profek, who is my favorite tier 2 like Smokes player behind Sterbin, I believe, from Turkey. That's how you pronounce it. He's really solid, specifically at like I think his Brim was the one that I liked the most. But I think his utility usage on like the Omen and actually, wow, he did not play much Brim. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know. But I think his general utility usage is really good. and has been for quite a bit. No, it has been for quite a bit, bro. He played like for BBL for not that long. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about there. I just said like a couple words at the end of that I just didn't mean at all. And then Tamazi, coming over from Carmine Core to Giants, now playing the Smokes role, I believe. Uh, I really liked him on the Sentinel role specifically for Carmine Core, and I hope he continues that kind of trajectory. Um, it was kind of weird that Carmine Core cut all their players, but they kind of had to with Oh, also I spelled his name wrong. Um, oopsies. But like, I think he can even like if they need him to play some duelist, maybe play some of those double duelist comps and stuff like that. I think he's really good in terms of that kind of stuff as well. So yeah, just a really solid player there that should be uh, probably the bright spot on this Giants team. Him and Westside, who I'll talk about in a little bit. Like they're really good. Then Ruxic, who I think is another good tier 2 prospect from Turkey. Just really good mechanically and I mean, he's mainly an Omen player in my eyes. Like, that's what he's best at. But he can play all the agents. Also, Viper, I think he's really good at as well. So, just a really solid Smokes player that I think can get better. Then Kiko, who I think is the prospect in terms of a Smokes player that I have the most doubt about just because he was not great last year for Liquid on the duelist role. But I could see a path for him to being a tens esque Smokes player. I'm just worried that maybe Omen won't be as in the meta, and he'll have to be forced to play an Astra or Brimstone that I don't think he would be quite as good at. Which, I mean, to be fair, when he played Sentinel, I believe he played Cypher against Giants in the offseason. He went 25 and 20, so make of that what you will. I don't know. That could be a potential path that they want to go down with Kiko on Sentinel as well. If Omen's really not in the meta and Astra like completely takes over, I doubt that'll happen, but it definitely is possible. And then Flya and Boo, just two IGLs that I don't think are going to be super consistent fragging. I think Flya has had some really great moments. Actually, dude, Boo was really good last year as a fragger, so I'm going to keep him there. But he definitely, towards the end of the season, started to have worse individual performances, and Fly is definitely less proven than him. And then again, as we do at the bottom of these lists, usually, you got Boaster. Obviously, everybody knows he's not a good individual player, but he's a good IGL, so obviously he should stay on the team. Like, I feel like people calling for Boaster's head were kind of crazy during last year, but yeah, he's still really good at the IGLing. Just I'm not putting that into my Smokes list here. Now onto the Sentinel role, where this top three, this should be everybody's top three. If you have anything different than this, you are wrong. Just straight up. Obviously, people will have it in different orders, and I think a lot of people are going to disagree with my order here. But yeah, I have less number one. I think he's the greatest Sentinel player of all time, or the best Sentinel player of all time. I think Alfier, in terms of greatness, in terms of winning the international titles, probably is a little bit better. But Les is so good. I think he kind of had a down year last year, but I think he'll come back really well on Vitality as long as that team can figure out the IGLing. He should be really good. Alfier, again, just a sick player. I mean, I don't know, man. He can play a lot of different stuff. He's a lot more flexible than maybe I thought he was heading into last year. But yeah, he's sick. I mean, he played like a lot of the Breach for them. I don't remember what else he played. I think he played a little bit of Gecko. He's played Viper. He's played both Sentinels, Info Sentinels at least. Uh, he's played some Chamber as well, I believe, for Fnatic. Obviously played Duelist in the past. I don't know. He's just sick. And then Benji. I think in terms of if you were ranking them how they played last year between these three, you would have Benji, Alpha, less. But I don't know. Benji's end of last year wasn't super great, and it feels like they're trying to try him on other roles for whatever reason. When I just think that like player that'll walk up and take a 50-50 aim duel. I feel like Benji is one of those players that you really want in that scenario. And to get you like those opening kills to kind of, I don't know, like flip the map kind of thing. I think he should be playing that Sentinel role, like that hard lurker. Maybe not lurker necessarily, but like side anchor. I think that's what he's best at. But then again, we haven't really seen him play too much else. So maybe he's better on a like flex/flash initiator role. We'll just have to see with him. Then hero, I think based on last year, pretty clearly the number 4 spot. I just don't think he's in that tier with less alpha Benji. Maybe he can prove to be this year, but for right now, I think he still needs to prove it outside of the Fnatic system and just like with a little bit more time. As well as Yedege, I think he was good last year, but I don't think he quite lived up to my expectations of being that like top tier Sentinel player, but he's still very good and probably one of the better Sentinels in the world as well as Elite, who I think is more of a, we'll wait and see with him, needs to develop a little bit more, play outside of that god-awful BBL team last year and try to prove himself a little bit more as an individual on Karmine Core now. I think he'll be very good there. Then West Side, I have at number 7, a little bit more of an unknown. I really liked what he showed last year, or not last year, just in Tier 2 last year. I think he's probably one of the better prospects in terms of Sentinel players in the EMEA, so really, really excited to see him. Then Nats, who I'm assuming is IGLing here, and I'm going to tank him down a little bit. I think he would be probably number 7 and in this tier with Hero, Yedege, and Elite, had he not been IGLing, but I'm going to assume he is and have him right here. Grabinho, I think, also played really well on the Sentinel, but we haven't seen it a ton. We just saw it in the one match, but I thought it looked really good. And yeah, he's really, really solid. And on the smokes too. Like whatever he's playing, I really, really like Grabinho. But with Sentinel, I just think there's so many good ones in EMEA that I have to put them ahead of him. Then Shiwa and Mini, I think, are both pretty solid. I don't think they're going to blow anybody out of the water, but I have them kind of at the bottom. And then I think Hype, I just don't think Hype is good. He's like your average. We're going to bring this guy in from Tier 2 on the Ascension team and maybe cut him at some point in the year, honestly. Like, he feels very similar to Net for me. All right, now onto my last list of IGLs. This one's going to get a little bit weird. I can't lie. Specifically just with all like the bottom of like just the new IGLs, I guess. But this top of the list I think is pretty set in stone. Sadak and Boaster in this top tier, pretty clear, I think. The 2 best IGLs in EMEA, if not the world. I think some people might have Boo in that conversation, but I do think a lot of what Heretics did last year was set plays, especially at the beginning of the season, and then also like individual skill was a big thing on that team. Not that the calling was bad. I mean, I still have Boo number 3 here and in a tier of his own above Mr. Fallen and Angel, who I do think are both very good callers in their own right. I just think Boo maybe needs another year of really consistent play on Heretics to kind of prove that maybe he is in that top tier, especially with how bad the Heretics was the year before. I need to see another year from Boo. Then Mr. Fallen, just been really consistent as an IGL for the past couple of years. I really like him. Angel, one of the like first big IGLs in the game, like in terms of just being really good early. He isn't like the greatest IGL in the world right now, but I do think maybe with a better team around him in 2025, I think he could kind of get back to that maybe. Then Flya, great prospect out of Americas. I think he is, I mean, I thought he was probably the best IGL prospect in all of Americas, and he doesn't get picked up by an Americas team somehow. So that was really confusing to me. Still think he's really good, obviously, going to EMEA. Whether he's playing smokes or flex, I think he'll be good on either of those. And yeah, I really like him. Then Yampi, another guy that I believe in to be definitely better than the other guys. This is his first real shot at IGLing, I think. Because Liquid, it was kind of just them tossing it around to every different person. And I do think Yampi was the best at it when he was IGLing. But it just got weird a lot with him. So not in terms of the calling, but in terms of that team, it was really weird and stuff. But I think he'll be a pretty big hit on BBL. We just have to see it first with both of those guys. And then these bottom five, they're either rookie IGLs in terms of Molsey and Robbie BK, or first time IGLs in Safe, Cloud, and Nats. I don't really have too many notes on these guys. I think Molsey and Robbie BK are pretty solid. I think Robbie has more potential to go up, and I think Molsey is better right now, just barely. But these guys are all in the same tier together. They have room to go up and down, especially these bottom three that can really shoot up the list with their team having a lot of success. But I don't really have anything to say about these bottom five. Um, they're just kind of, we'll wait and see with them. So with that, that'll be the video. Let me pull the IGL list back up to here. And we'll zoom out a little so you guys can see everything. But these are my player rankings heading into 2025 for EMEA. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. We still do need to figure out Apex Flex player, but we'll figure that out at some point soon. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.